Hi
Yeah.
there. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, well,
It-
nice to meet you.
Thank you. Valerie Milano of the Hollywood Times.
Yes.
Hi. This is an amazing film, getting right to the core of what made the 90s Yankees one of baseball's all-time failures. How long did it take you to put the series together? Did it take you uh, to put the series together from the moment you decided to explore the topic to the premiere on Peacock?
So the premiere, I would say it's almost a 2.5, 3 year journey from the time reading the articles during the pandemic in the New York Post to sort of spawn the idea to make a series. So the moment we get it on air on May 16th on the Peacock. So it's almost about 2.5, 3 years, and partially because it involved a lot of research. 1990 doesn't seem like that long ago, but it's long enough that you have to find footage. You got to try to find interviews. You have to see who's where and what's there. So there was an extensive research team and a media gathering team that was fantastic. And once we got to see all the different ancillary tangents and the people that we can pull in, then deciding who to go interview, what's the best interview, and going. Because when you do a documentary, you start with a thesis, and then that thesis sort of evolves as you go along. So it was almost a 2.5, 3 year period from the moment we said let's do this to the moment it's going to air tomorrow in the Peacock.
The series paints the late George Steinbrenner as the bully that he was. His son Hal is still a club official more than 30 years after this story unfolded. The interviews with Howard Spira gave the story a rather pathetic overtone, particularly since no one defended Steinbrenner. Did the Yankees cooperate with you willingly, or did you have to fight to get access to club ownership?
We had to fight a little bit because the Yankees are such a gigantic conglomerate and sort of the world's biggest sports team. I mean, obviously you can say Manchester United and soccer and all, but the Yankees are a gigantic global brand that own their own network and sort of make their own TV series and do their own specials and stuff. So if you go to the Yes Network, you're not going to find anything on the 1990 Yankees, correct? So they're going to sort of say, sort of revisionist history in a way. So they weren't excited about this documentary being made. But I will say the Yankee players and Brian Cashman and a lot of the people in around, they understood that this documentary or this docuseries had an approach of like, because things were so dark and so bad, it opened the door for certain things to happen so that the Yankee dynasty not only came back, but it came back stronger in 96 from winning 4 of the 5 next World Series championships. That because of all this darkness and because of what happened in 1990, um, there was some light at the end of the tunnel. So I think everyone saw in retrospect how that was important and an important story to tell. But no, it wasn't something. This is not a documentary or docu-series that the Yankees would be uberly excited about because Steinbrenner, there's a love-hate. I mean, you can see even in our show, in our film, that half the people love him, half the people hate him. The people who wanted to get rid of him wanted to bring him back 6 months later. So there's no gray area with George Steinbrenner. There's love or you hate him. And the one thing about George that I loved in going back and look at this, he wanted to win at all costs. Sometimes that's very dangerous, but winning to him was very important. And when he got desperate, and the whole Winfield situation, which was sort of a 10-year feud with Dave Winfield, one of his best players, he got desperate, and a guy like Howie Spira got to him and got him when he was very vulnerable. And it's hard to believe that George Steinbrenner kind of fell into Howie Spira's trap in a way, and how that was sort of the downfall of that season and what happened to George after that.
The former sports writers were more than willing to participate, I'm guessing.
Yes.
How about the former players? Dave Winfield, inconspicuous by his absence. Were the
Yes.
players generally willing to talk?
They really were willing to talk. And even Deion Sanders, who's not in the docuseries, we have features and film on Deion, but Deion at the time was undergoing his foot issue and toe surgeries. And so we had to cancel on us twice because of that. He was willing to talk. Dave was the only person we reached out to who just didn't want to go back there, didn't want to go back. And, if you see the series, you can understand why. You see the film. He just didn't want to go back to the 1990 season. And he had 10 really productive years with the Yankees that were part of his Hall of Fame career. But even again, I had to we screened the series in New York last week, and I had been away from it for a couple weeks or months, because then watching it again, you realize, wow, what the Winfield Steinbrenner relationship and how that 10, they got married in 1980 when they signed the contract, and they wanted to get a divorce on the same day. And so that 10-year relationship of George really trying to, and to his detriment, just trying to get rid of Winfield and try to destroy him or try to get a one up on him. The ego that was involved there really led to a tumultuous 10 years.
The Mel Hall segment was particularly troubling to watch, especially in the context of today's societal standards. That no one took issue with the inappropriate relationship says a lot about the Yankee mystique. This segment might be the series' most powerful, especially with the interview with both Chaz Esterly, the victim, and sexual predator Hall, his first from prison, where he is serving a 40-year sentence. Tell us about how those interviews were arranged, please.
The interviews, those were two difficult interviews to kind of to kind of get my handle around how to tell the story and what to do. And then first of all, finding them, locating them, and seeing. But it really became clear to me, having tracked down and spoken to Chaz when I found her and we had our first conversation, that she was a strong woman. That she has come out a strong woman with beautiful children and a beautiful business and an incredible attitude and a willingness to help people. And then so for me, I thought, oh, this really parallels the 1990 Yankee story. Through all this darkness, by 96, they're back on top. They got rid of all this darkness and sort of put it behind them. And that Chaz's story paralleled that. So for me, that seemed like a really natural way to approach it. And Chaz is so now comfortable in sharing her story because it is helping a lot of people. It really helps a lot of people. And even from a parental standpoint, like parents that allow certain things to happen because these predators, and a predator like Mel Hall, woos your family, woos everybody, and sort of takes control, and then becomes sort of the one conduit who tells you you're the one to trust. And so to kind of deal with that. So Chaz's thing was very clear to me. I really felt I had a good handle on the approach. And it took me almost 6 months to convince her to speak. And I never wanted to force her. I always told her it has to be your decision. And we kept a dialogue. We became friends. And by the time we became friends, we trusted each other. And that was something important. The Mel Hall took a little bit. Mel really was obviously more interested in talking about baseball and the 1990 Yankees. I was hoping to get in there and see someone who, he did, outside of the Chaz situation in 1990, Mel continued to be a horrific pedophile throughout Texas, and from girls ages 12 to ages 16, did horrible things in exactly the same way he manipulated Chaz's family. He did it in Texas. It was such a pattern. It was crazy when you looked at it. And Kim, who's our DA in Texas, who helped put Mel away, describes that very well in the film. So anyway, my interview with Mel, I didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. But I think when you see it and you watch the film and you see what it is, it's incredibly disappointing that I didn't sense like an ounce of remorse. Mm-hmm. And he almost convinces himself that he's a victim in a bizarre way. And that was troubling, very troubling.
Thank you. Thank you, DJ. Has there been pushback from the Yankees by your portrayal of the club in general and Steinbrenner in particular?
No, there's been no pushback. There's been no pushback. And I think what's interesting about that is when, Don Mattingly is someone I love and is so revered, and Bernie Williams and the people, and Brian Cashman, who's amazing, who was a young intern in 1989, 1990, who's now the general manager. I think the fact that everyone cooperated and just talked and spoke honestly, I haven't had any pushback. I think it's also fun to see like Yankee fans of different ages remember, oh, I remember that now. I remember this Howie Spira guy. And then other people who don't, it's shocking to me that new Yankee fans don't really even know what type of personality George Steinbrenner was, which is shocking, because he was the first celebrity owner that anyone can remember. I mean, he's hosting Saturday Night Live. He's Mark Cuban and he's Jerry Jones long before owners were known. He was the man. And it's interesting that new Yankee fans, this generation of Yankee fans, don't comprehend the power that George had. Mm-hmm.
Well, great. Thank you again for
Yeah.
taking the time and
Yes,
making.
thank you. I
And
apologize for being late. Sorry about
no
that.
problem. Valerie
Yeah.
Milano, the Hollywood Times official is our YouTube, and hollywoodtimes.net. Hopefully we can maybe meet one day. And thank you for this wonderful portrayal, this wonderful film. And I appreciate you for taking the time today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I do hope to meet you someday too, in person.
Excellent. Love it.
Take
Have a
care.
great
Bye-bye.
rest of your time. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.